Once upon a time in a small village there lived an old lady. She was very old with silver hair and a face full of wrinkles, but her eyes were bright and filled with kindness. Everyone in the village loved her because she always seemed happy, even when life was hard. She lived alone in a little house near the big banyan tree. Her husband had passed away many years ago, and she had no children to care for her, but she never complained. Every morning she would sit under the banyan tree, smiling at everyone who passed by. People in the village loved talking to her because her words were always warm and comforting, like a soft blanket on a cold night. The villagers worked hard to make a living. Some were farmers who tilled the land, some were carpenters crafting furniture, and others worked in the small market selling fruits, vegetables, or clothes. But life was not easy. Sometimes the rains wouldn't come and the crops would dry up. Other times people fell sick and couldn't work. Many villagers lived with worry and sadness, but the old lady's smile never faded. One day a young woman named Priya came to visit her. Priya's face was full of tears, and her voice trembled as she spoke. "I don't know what to do, Grandma," she said. "My husband has gone to the city to find work, but he hasn't sent any money. My children are hungry and I'm scared. What if something bad has happened?" The old lady looked at Priya with her gentle eyes and smiled softly. "Sit down, my child," she said, patting the ground beside her. "Tell me, what do you think will happen?" Priya wiped her tears with the edge of her sari and replied, "I don't know, Grandma. I feel like everything is going wrong. What if my husband can't find work? What if he forgets about us? What if we have nothing to eat?" The old lady listened patiently and then shook her head gently. "Priya, when we fill our minds with bad thoughts, our hearts grow heavy and everything feels worse. But when we think good thoughts, our hearts feel lighter and sometimes good things begin to happen." Priya looked at her doubtfully. "But how can I think good thoughts when everything around me is so bad?" The old lady smiled again. "Let me tell you a story," she began. "Once there was a poor man who had nothing. He had no food, no money, and no family. He sat by the river one day crying bitterly. An old woman passing by saw him and stopped. She asked, 'Why are you crying, my son?' The man said, 'I have nothing. How can I ever be happy?' The old woman smiled and said, 'You have the river which flows endlessly. You have the trees which give shade and fruit. You have the sun which warms you every day. Look around you. There is beauty and life everywhere. If you only think about what you don't have, you will always be sad. But if you think about what you do have, you will find peace.'" The man listened carefully to her words. He stopped crying and began to notice the river, the trees, and the bright sun. Slowly he started to feel better. From that day he began to work hard, and his life started to change. The old lady looked at Priya and said, "You see, my dear, the man's life didn't change because of magic. It changed because he changed the way he thought. When we think positive thoughts, we find the strength to face our problems. When we think only about what's wrong, we feel weak and hopeless." Priya listened carefully and then asked, "Will my thinking really make a difference?" The old lady nodded. "Yes, my child. If you wake up every morning and say to yourself, 'Today will be a good day,' you will find the strength to care for your children and face whatever comes your way. But if you keep thinking about what might go wrong, you will feel sad and unable to act." Priya wiped her tears and nodded slowly. "I understand, Grandma. I will try to think good thoughts from now on." The old lady smiled warmly. That is the first step, my dear. My dear. From that day, Priya began to follow the old lady's advice. Every morning she told herself, "Today will be a good day." She worked hard, cared for her children, and waited for her husband with hope in her heart. A few weeks later, she received a letter from her husband. He had found a job in the city and was sending money back home. Priya's eyes filled with tears of joy. She ran to the old lady's house to share the news. The old lady smiled and said, "You see, my dear, when we think positively, we invite good things into our lives. Problems will always come, but if we face them with a hopeful heart, we can overcome them." Soon the old lady's wisdom spread across the village. Many people came to her to share their troubles. She always gave the same advice: think good thoughts and good things will follow. The villagers began to see the power of her words, and their lives slowly became brighter. They loved and respected her even more for the hope and happiness she brought into their lives. Our thoughts have incredible power over our lives. When we focus on the good, we find strength, hope, and solutions to our problems. Life is not always easy, but with a positive attitude, we can face challenges and invite happiness into our hearts. Always remember, a hopeful heart is a strong heart. This lesson applies to everyone. No matter how dark the situation may seem, a hopeful and grateful heart can create light. By choosing to think good thoughts and embrace hope, we open ourselves to new possibilities, find peace within, and inspire others to do the same.